Do you guys know what abide means?
Remain, stay, dwell, and continue. Eat.
Remain, stay, dwell, and continue. Thank you, Miss Webster. No, okay, what's that? You did your Bible study. All right, that's good. That's true. That's what it means. Okay. How about remnant? He said today, like only a remnant will be saved. What is remnant? Remnant, yeah, a little piece, little chunk. Only a few. Okay, so a remnant refers to a few. So I was thinking about that today during the sermon. I wanted to make sure we could define terms. Speaking of defining terms, well, today we're going to talk about rejecting sin. And this is something that I wish I understood more long time ago. What sin is. Okay, now there's not only one okay definition. There's plenty of definitions for what sin is. But can anybody throw out what is sin? Like, what do we mean by that? Yeah. Anything that's disobeying God or his goes against God or his perfect plan. Okay. That's a good way to put it. That is correct. Anybody have another way of phrasing it? Bad things. Okay, that's true. Okay, sin is bad.
Things that are pleasing to
Oh, if something's pleasing to the world, it's probably not pleasing.
the world.
Oh.
Something that is not. What? Something that is not. Yeah, it's not.
Okay. Any other definitions out there? Worldly, of the world. Okay, yeah. Death. Sin definitely leads to death. And good. Okay. Any others? Okay. So we're going to talk today about rejecting sin, training ourselves to reject sin, and how do we do that? Okay. Now, an aspect of sin that was not mentioned today, yeah, I mean, it kind of was, but is found in Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 12. And for some reason, chapter 2 doesn't seem right. I might have made a typo. You have to tell me if Jeremiah 2, 12 and 13 is this. I sure hope it is, but I might have typed the wrong reference. 2 verse 12? Okay, it is? Okay, good. For some reason, I thought it was later in Jeremiah. Okay, so Jeremiah 2, verse 12 and 13 says this. Be appalled, O heavens, at this. Appalled. It's like be horrified, right? Be shocked. Be utterly desolate. In other words, you need to be absolutely horrified at what he's going to say here. Okay? Be utterly desolate, declares the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed out cisterns for themselves, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Let's define a cistern. Okay, a cistern is like a well. Here, I've got a picture of one. Okay. So this is the dirt, okay? So this is the dirt, and underneath dirt is like rock or limestone, okay? So it's like a well, okay, that somebody would dig, and they'd put a stone cover over it, and there'd be like a drain here. The rainwater would come, go through the drain, and then these rocks would sort of filter the rainwater a little bit, and then collect the water underground. Yes?
Okay, is there a story in the Bible with like a guy, the guy who like got the lion out of the
Benaiah, did he kill a lion?
I don't remember. Yeah, he did.
I think so. Benaiah was one of the mighty men.
Was it a cistern?
What comes to mind for me is like a pit. But a cistern, yeah, he went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion, I think. If I'm remembering the right thing, but it's kind of an obscure reference, but I think that's what it is. But at any rate, a cistern, Joseph's brothers got ticked off at him, right? Because of his dreams. And they threw him into a cistern. a dried cistern. So Joseph's brothers put him into a cistern until the Midianites or Ishmaelites came by, and then they sold him into slavery. So instead of killing him, they put him in a cistern. Cisterns, if they were abandoned, they would just dry out. And so they put him into a dried cistern to it's in a pit. Rope. They raised him up in a rope and sold him. Jeremiah the prophet, when he was prophesying, like later in the book of Jeremiah, they put him into a cistern too as kind of a punishment. And they were just going to leave him there to die. But a eunuch named Ebed-Melech pulled him out. But anyway, this is what a cistern looks like. It's for storing rainwater primarily. Okay? So what God's saying here in Jeremiah chapter 2 is this is shocking, it's appalling, it's horrifying that the Israelites have forsaken me, forsaken God. God is the fountain of living waters. And instead of God, they have dug or hewed, right? They had to chop through some rock. Okay? They have made cisterns. And their cisterns are broken and leaky. They can't hold any water. But the Israelites have chosen to have a broken, leaky pit and get their water out of here. Now, if you're in the desert, cistern water is better than no water. Would you agree? Okay, if you're in the desert and you come across a cistern and you have a rope and a bucket, it's kind of like a well, but see, it's not a well. Okay, it's not like a well would have like a underwater river. Well water is nice and clean. How nice do you think water that's been sitting in the desert cistern tastes?
You don't have any water.
Better, fine if you don't have other water. But if the cistern is right next door to this fountain, this spring of water bubbling up ice cold. Has anybody ever tasted ice cold like mountain spring water? Andrea is raising her hand.
I've tasted the brand that's called Mountain.
Okay, I doubt it's actually from. Never mind. Some of these, just an aside, some of these like spring water things, right? If you read the labels, I read labels on stuff. You know that by now. But it says on there, I forget which brand it is. It's a spring water, but it says bottled from a municipal source. Municipal is city. So in other words, just some city that tap water. Yeah, it's just, anyway, okay. Anyway, the point is, if you're in the desert and you don't have any water and you come across a cistern, this would be good, okay? But if the cistern is right next door to cold flowing mountain spring fountain water, this is good. I have been hiking through the mountains before with my wife, and we were hot, and we come across our water bottles had run out, and it was so nice. The water just tasted good. You just plunge your head in. All right, so at any rate, I don't know. Yeah, I just spit them out. No, all right. There's no. You got the mountain water. Oh, it's so. Anyway, okay. So God is like that ice cold. Huh? Oh, okay. God is like that ice cold fountain. He's a spring of living water. And he said, you Israelites have rejected that, and you'd rather have not just stale collected rainwater that's been sitting there forever, but the stuff you make, the cisterns, they're leaky. They don't even hold water. Okay? So you've rejected the source of satisfaction. You've rejected the fountain of living water. And this is what you think is better. Okay? That's essentially what the Israelites have done. And this is a geyser, but this was just this is not Old Faithful, but it's a geyser. I've seen this geyser, and these are people, by the way. Okay, so yeah, huh? Geysers are hot. So this is probably not what the Bible had in mind, but I just think it's a cool picture. Okay, so it's not. No. By the time it comes down, it's cold. Yeah, I mean it's been all aired out and stuff. So anyway, okay. So picture this. All right. What do you think is cooler, this or that? Okay.
The fountain of water.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So this is cool. People come. Look at all the people here. People come from all over the world to see this. Nobody except for, well, I won't name names, will come to see this. Okay? Starts with N, ends in aura. Yeah. All right, so this is what the Israelites wanted instead of this. Okay? So this is like sin. Sin is a replacement for God. Okay? It's a replacement for God. And yes, it's bad stuff. It's stuff from the world. All the definitions you gave for sin are good. Okay? But this is one way of considering what sin is. It's changing out God for something else that you are tricked into thinking is better. Okay? And it's not better. Sin can't hold water, you could say. All right? So sin is often an exchange. You're trading out the good thing that God has or the good that God is, and you're trading it for something that you're tricked. You're tricked into thinking it's better. You're tricked into thinking it's better. So here's some scriptures about this. Psalm 106, verse 20. Sin is often described as changing something out, substituting something for God. So here, for example, it's talking about the Israelites. They exchanged their glorious God for an image of a bull which eats grass. Okay, it's talking about like the Israelites making their idol. Okay. What's that? Mm-hmm. They exchanged the glorious God for an image of a bull that eats grass in the field. Like, come on. Romans chapter 1 says the same thing. When it says when people are claiming to be wise, they became fools. And they exchanged. Okay, they're changing it. They're exchanging the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Okay, so they're making idols instead. Okay, they're exchanging the glory of God for idols. And then look at the consequence. Okay, in Romans chapter 1, verse 24, it says, therefore, because they did that, right? Because they switched, they changed the glory of God for idols, God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie. They traded the truth for a lie. And they worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Ruby.
Actually, at you. Yeah, I'm just gonna. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, here's how the Israelites did it. That's a great question, okay? Think about it, and that's a really good question. How in the world did the Israelites, right, go from worshiping God? They just get delivered from Egypt, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's make a golden calf and say, hey, this is the gods that brought us out of Egypt. I mean, that doesn't seem logical at all. And you're right. To us, it seems like what? I mean, is their IQ really that low? I mean, like, what's going on, right? Right? That's what makes us think.
If you watch
That's true.
Think about it, like idolizing, like why would you even do that?
Mm,
find
right.
like
Right.
fun before God all the time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's
We don't worship statues, generally speaking. Okay, but think of the Israelites for a minute. Okay, the Israelites, where did they come out of? They lived in Egypt. What was going on in Egypt? Was there any idol worship in Egypt? Yeah, the sun god, the Ra. There's all kinds of, right? There's all kinds of gods that they worshipped in Egypt. All the countries all around them worship different idols too. Okay. Then Moses shows up and says, "Hey, here's some signs, here's some wonders. The real God is not an idol. So don't make any idols now." That was a revolutionary thought in the history of mankind. Like everybody had idols, okay? So even do you remember Jacob had to serve Laban like 7 years to get Rachel and Leah?
I was doing my devotion,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
because I'm like trying to go through the whole Bible.
that's great. Yeah.
And I just like read that.
Yes, and Rachel had the household gods, right? Do you remember that part? Or I don't know if you're there yet. Did they flee Laban yet in your Bible reading? Okay, well, when they fled, when Jacob, Rachel, and Leah left, what'd they take with them? The household gods. They had little idols, yeah. So the problem is they were in a society. Where did they get the idea for idolatry? From the world. It was like very prominent in their world. And when they made the golden calf, maybe you don't remember this, but when the Israelites made the golden calf, this is what they said. Here's the golden calf. These are the gods that delivered us. Tomorrow, we're going to have a festival to the Lord. So, what they did, they didn't like totally say, oh, the Lord who delivered us isn't for real. We're just going to bow down to these statues. They said, no, this is the representation of the Lord now. Okay? Because God said, look, I am not, dude, I don't eat grass, man. Right? I'm not like a bull that eats grass in the field and poops it out later. That's not me. Okay? I don't want you. I created everything. Don't make something to look like me. Like none of this stuff is me. Okay? So it's very important that you understand that. It's very important that you understand that idolatry, they got it from the world around them. It was very, very common. And secondly, they kind of blended it with God. And that is how the devil's going to get you and me too. He's not going to say, hey, this statue created you. Huh? No. He'll get you to blend something from the world in with the truth and go that way. Isn't that how he got Eve? He didn't say, hey, Eve, this fruit will kill you. Right? He said, no, this will make you wise. See, this will open your eyes. Yeah, Keely. Mm-hmm. Don't make any graven images. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But Jesus was a man.
Jesus is a man. That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
I'm smelling what you're stepping in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another way.
So,
Yeah, right.
like that, right? You're not supposed to
Right.
God, then is that bad that like
Right.
or is it like because he was a man?
I think now how I interpret it is God doesn't want us to make graven images for the purpose of worship. Like I'm going to worship that thing, okay, and call that God. But does that mean now some people would say, you know what, that's why we don't watch, we don't, some people think like, hey, even like The Chosen, that's not really Jesus there. And, yeah. So I'm just saying, I don't particularly think that's what God meant. But if somebody felt that way, I don't think it's that important that I would be like, no, you must watch The Chosen with me tonight. I don't think I would like really make that the hugest issue in the world. But in my opinion, I do not believe that so, because see, here's another thing. Like God said, don't make graven images of anything. Anything that crawls on the earth, anything, whatever. But yet later that's what he said. However, later he also said, hey, I want you to decorate the tabernacle and the temple with carvings of pomegranates, among other things. And so, and they're good. So that's why I think he probably didn't mean don't make any pictures or shapes of anything. But yeah.
When they make statues in honor of people, like is that, I don't know if people really but like.
And these are all great questions that some people, some people are like, yeah, ooh, crosses. I don't know if we should do crosses. I don't know. We, right, as a church, we don't have like, you go to a Catholic, and they've got like statues of Mary out there, statues of Jesus. We don't really prefer to do that. Okay, I don't think that's the way to go. I prefer to keep that stuff minimal, personally. But the point is, though, okay, I think we need to be careful that we don't get tricked by what's common in our culture and substitute that in. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Okay. What kinds of things do we need to not exchange? What kinds of things do we need to watch out for? We don't have to really watch out for statues, I don't think. What do we have to look out for? Some of you are naming off some other things. What do you think? Money, for sure. Fame. Popularity. Friends. Gossip.
Media.
Yeah, gossip, media. All right. So all these things we can rattle off real quick. So what do you do about those things? I'm just saying, what do you do about them? I mean, do you gossip? Do you cut it out and just like, do you treat it like they were supposed to treat idols? What were they supposed to do to idols? Smash them into pieces. What did Moses do to the golden calves? He melted it down, ground it into powder, put it in the water, and made them drink it. Okay?
They said it would make them sick of powder.
It probably wasn't that much by the time.
It wasn't that
All right. So that's intense. Guys, do we take it that seriously? Or do we kind of play with the idols? We're like, well, I won't really worship them. I'll just kind of like keep them in my, I'll just keep the little statue in my pocket. I don't hardly ever take it out. I mean, do we do that? Do we kind of flirt with the idols a little bit? or do we smash them and pulverize them? Well, that's the thing, right? How do we treat money, right? We kind of need to use money to survive, but boy, oh boy, we got to be careful, right? Yeah, you can't. I don't know if I'd recommend burning all your money. All right. Defeating sin is also often an exchange. Okay, and let me share what I mean by that. Look at Romans 6. Romans 6 says in verse 13, do not offer any part of yourself to sin as an instrument of wickedness, but rather, or instead, offer yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life. Offer every part of yourself to Him as an instrument of righteousness. So, get what this is saying here. Okay? Sometimes we can read a verse like this and go, oh yeah, that's a neat verse. But look at what it's saying. Instead of offering your bodies as sin, instead of doing something sinful, do other things instead. Offer yourself to God. Be so busy serving God that you don't have time for sin. Does that make sense? Why don't I do social media myself? Well, honestly, I'd have a real hard time finding the time for it. I do other things. Okay? Busy yourself in serving God. And in future weeks, we're going to talk more about what that means. Look at Galatians 5, verse 13. Paul's writing to the Galatians. He says, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. You're called to be free. But don't use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. Do you see how the flesh is like our fleshly desires, our appetites, our sinful desires. Hey, don't use your freedom, don't use your free time for sin. Instead, get busy serving one another. So do you see there how doing something replaces sin? Does that make sense? Okay, it's not just, hey, avoid bad stuff, avoid bad stuff, avoid bad stuff. It's like, yeah, avoid bad stuff, but also get busy doing good stuff. Because you know what? If you just avoid bad stuff and just sit there, like, all right, I'm not sinning. Out of boredom, you're probably going to wander into something sinful. Okay? Look at Ephesians 5. This can kind of talk about gossip or whatever. It says, nor should there be. So there should not be obscenity, that's like swearing, foolish talk, or coarse joking. So it doesn't mention gossip, but I think bad kind of talking, okay? We should not have bad talking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. Do you see how thanksgiving can replace the bad kind of talking? It's kind of hard to swear if you're busy thanking. You know what I mean? You're busy being thankful. Kind of hard to have obscenity, if that makes sense. Okay, so defeating sin, stopping sinful activity, stopping sinful talk, is often a matter of replacing it with thankful talk. Stopping indulging the flesh is often accomplished by serving one another. So, for example, if you get sinful responses stirred up into you by your siblings, okay? I'm sure it never happens, but I'm just making things up here. Okay, if your siblings ever stir up a sinful response inside of you, and you just want to, I don't know, punch them. All right, okay. Think of it this way. What do they usually do to annoy you? Your siblings, maybe they'll take something you wanted, or okay, you don't do something, whatever. They get upset at you. But look at this. Oh, they get upset. Oh boy. All right. So if you make it your goal to serve your siblings, right? To serve your siblings, it's going to be pretty hard for them if they're like, hey, you didn't do this for me. How would you respond? Like, oh, sorry, my bad. Or actually, I did, see? I already did it. I've been serving you all day, Determining to serve one another will help you not to indulge your flesh in various circumstances. Okay? All right, there's more. Look at Ephesians 5, verse 11. It says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness. Instead, expose fruitless deeds. Okay? So, fruitless deeds of darkness, all right? Some sort of, I don't know what. You could come up with any example. If you make it your mission to expose sinful deeds, rather, you will not be indulging in them. Okay? There's a rather. How about Philippians chapter 2? It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. You guys understand that if you do that, if you think other people are more important than yourself, do you know how much that will save you from? It will just save you from like responding to them in all kinds of ways. Okay. I want to pause right there for a sec. Right? So sin, remember the Israelites were changing the fountain, the living water God, for a bucket with holes. Okay. Well, to undo that, to defeat sin, change our leaky buckets for the fountain of living water. Ruby, do you have a question?
Being someone's personal, you don't have to be
Right. You don't. This is not about being somebody's personal punching bag. True. Right. If somebody, that's true.
someone. Try and please
Oh, that sounds like a good phrase. All right, that's true. All right. If somebody's being a punching bag, we might need to expose that. Okay. All right, that's what it says there, right? Okay. Other thoughts out there? What do you guys think? How can we apply these things to something like social media or something? Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, first of all, this is more like, if you think about it, it's more like an attitude, right? You're going to value them. So you know what I mean. When you have competing desires, you both want something, it's like, in humility, let's value their preference above even our own. And that's not easy to do, okay? So it doesn't necessarily have to do with, one of the reasons we read our Bibles is so that we can have our minds transformed more like this, so that we can do things. Okay? Being a Christian is really not about reading your Bible all the time. We read the Bible like crazy, treat it as the most important book in the world, because it is, so that we are equipped to go out and do God's will. Okay? I don't know if that helps, if that makes sense. Okay. And that's actually what we're going to talk about more next week, is how do we, I want to skip to, how do we use our knowledge of what we have to actually serve God? What does it mean, like in this youth group right here, what does it mean to serve one another in love? Okay, it doesn't mean to be somebody's personal punching bag. It doesn't mean to just, I don't know, get taken advantage of. But how do we serve one another? How do we, right here in this room, how do you encourage others to abide in Christ? Abide, that's one of the words of the day, right? How do you encourage somebody else to do that? How do you help someone else have more faith? How do you reach other people, like at school or wherever, for the Lord? How do we actually do these things? Okay? That's what we're going to be talking about next week. In the meantime, I want to ask you guys, think about the leaky buckets in your life. Okay? Got to think about the broken cisterns. Is there any way that you have exchanged the glory of God for stuff of this world that doesn't last? Okay. See? And there's some things, right? There's some things that should come to mind. And you have an opportunity to get rid of those things, right? You have an opportunity to pulverize it into powder and make your siblings drink it. No. But you have an opportunity to crush these things and get them out of your life. And I don't know what they all are for each of you, okay? This is something that doesn't end, by the way. This is something I still do myself, okay? I showed you guys, right? I made my phone black and white, you know? I still try to find ways where I can not get sucked into distractions and things that keep me from Jesus. And do you know what? That brings more joy. It really does bring more joy. I want to point out one more thing. The song we sing, For Your Glory and My Good. You guys remember singing that today? It's a good song.
The one that we're like learning.
It's the one we're learning. Yeah. God's glory, God's commands are for our good. And Maylee, as you're reading through the Old Testament, I am too. I just started a couple months ago. So whoever is reading through the Old Testament, I started a while ago. So I'm in Judges right now. But all through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, so often God is like, I'm commanding you these things today so that it will go well with you. I want it to go well with you. So when, social media, I've been picking on that a little bit today because you guys brought it up. Guys, we already know social media increases depression. So when we talk about like limiting social media, when we talk about getting rid of some leaky buckets for the fun, like it's kind of like, look, just bring more happiness into your life, okay? The things that we do for God are actually for our good too. All right. Well, let's close in prayer. And I also want to remember to pray